My guest today is somebody who has expressed a contrarian view, a view that is far more hopeful of Indo-Bangladesh ties in these times of extreme tumult. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, welcome to NDTV.
Thank you very much for having me.
And what struck me, Ambassador Kumar, when I was reading your piece, was that while everyone else is on the other side of the tangent and talking about how it has a potential negative impact on India's approach, India's ties with Bangladesh, India's overall standing in the neighborhood and in particular in Bangladesh, you say that India does have an opportunity based on deep people-to-people connect between India and Bangladesh. Why do you say so, Ambassador Kumar?
Well, let me put it in perspective. First, I think as an American politician once said, never waste a crisis. I think a crisis offers an opportunity as well, and I think India should exploit it. That's the first point. I don't disagree with people who say that this has been a blow to India's neighborhood first policy. I say so myself in my article. I also say that this offers a situation which is confusing, so we should wait and watch. And I think we should consult closely with our Western friends and partners. But having said all of that, I want to make one point to you and your viewers, which is that India's neighborhood policy for the last 25, 30 years, if it has one flaw, it is that we have either in practice put all our eggs in one basket in terms of a leader, or at least have given the perception of doing so, both of which are wrong, by the way. So whether
and that's the criticism, that's the principal criticism actually, if one were to say, one were to sort of collate the various strands of opinion, then that's the principal criticism currently of the Indian dispensation, that at least in the appearance, we have put all our eggs in the basket of deposed Miss Hasina, and that probably we had very little contact with the other side. Now that may or may not be true, because sometimes, you know, the other back channel contacts or other back channel conversations are not so much in public domain, while the pageantry, pomp and show of the official contacts is. But however, that is one principal criticism.
No, it is a criticism. And as you said, it may also be more of a perception. But also, I think one has to understand that in foreign policy and strategic, the strategy that countries adopt with regard to neighbors, you have to play with the hand you are dealt. It's not as if you can create circumstances which are fundamentally different. So for us, she was the best bet because she headed, after all, the secular faction in Bangladesh. And the rest of it was Islamic in various shades and hues. So we had no choice in that sense. But what I am saying is that perhaps the time has come for India to really craft a Bangladesh policy that is based on structural reasons. And the reason I say it is because compared to 20 years ago, which is when I was Joint Secretary Bangladesh, by the way, my tenure with Bangladesh as Joint Secretary Bangladesh is 2005, 2007. That time we did not have the kind of structural factors we have today, which is investment, which is economic ties, which is our ability to do joint investment with Japan. We now have enough structural factors which can actually provide a ballast to the Indo-Bangladesh relationship, rather than just saying, listen, Sheikh Hasina is our person and whatever we do will really be to promote her and to buttress her.
But Dr. Kumar, I noticed that strand of argument that you make, and that's why that article stood out in so many ways. But my point is that we have seen in the past, and you have as a diplomat probably seen it from closer quarters, that when the regimes change, people to people contact, investments, and any other kind of social structural flows are the first casualty.
No, that you are right in normal circumstances, but with Bangladesh, I would stick my neck out and say that it is almost impossible, because as a Bangladeshi once told me quite dramatically, he says, when we get up in the morning, the toothpaste we use is from India, the toothbrush we use is from India. And he went on to say the kind of things they use, which is from India. And then he said, even the mattress on which we lie down and sleep and go to sleep is actually made in India. So I think there are now such close economic and investment ties, and many of the investment ties that we have with Bangladesh, I dare say, are irreversible. For example, take the example of power. I think Bangladesh will need power from India, no matter what. They're not going to get power from China or from Singapore. So if they need power, and if they need power to drive their industry, even if you have a neutral caretaker government, those links are going to remain. So my article was actually a plea that this crisis may actually provide a golden opportunity for India to shift the neighborhood policy and especially craft a Bangladesh policy based not on personalities, but on structural factors. I don't disagree with those who say there is a crisis in Bangladesh. I don't disagree with those who say it's a challenge. I don't disagree with those who say this policy that I'm suggesting is actually difficult to put in practice, because we need to really also be unburdened from the past, as it were. So these will take time. But my article was essentially a plea that we don't look back and keep crying over spilled milk, but move forward and try and see if we can craft a neighborhood policy. And by the way, this prescription, I believe, is not just for Bangladesh. Every other neighboring country, whether it is Nepal, Sri Lanka, or Bhutan, or whichever country, we need to really now craft neighborhood policies on the basis of structural factors and not personalities. That was really the central message in my article.
Yes, and that's why, as I said in the past as well, that it stood out. It had a positive ray of hope in the entire crisis as well. Another question that I wish to ask you, Doctor, is that you have also dealt in parts with the Paris Peace Forum. Now, in the Paris Peace Forum, obviously, the attempt is to negotiate peace. Attempt is to bring peace to a troubled region, so to say. Bangladesh today, unfortunately, is in the throes of a tumult, is in the throes of a crisis. What do you think, based on your experience in that Paris Peace Forum? Currently, almost all the players, be it Sheikh, be it Begum Khalida Zia, be it Sheikh Hasina hasn't spoken, but the feelers from that side, or even for that matter, Mr. Yunus and the student leaders as well, currently are making all the right noises. Currently are saying that, peace is, coexistence is the way forward, peace is the way for progress and not disturbance. But do you think that it is easier said than done? And you have also written, and many other observers have also observed, that Bangladesh is not an easy country to govern.
No, it's not. Bangladesh is certainly not an easy country to govern. It was born in the midst of tumult, and unfortunately, when it was born as a country, there wasn't 100% consensus on what kind of country it should be. So there has always been, as I said in my article, you've had a secular faction. You could also, some people argue it's a struggle between a Bengali identity and an Islamic identity. But whichever way you look at it, I call it a secular faction and an Islamic faction, but it's the same thing at the end of the day. So this continues to be the case. And certainly there is no question that Sheikh Hasina ruled with an iron hand. and certainly she tried to marginalize these groups. You can never really marginalize them in a country where at least 50% of the population feels that way. You can marginalize it if the Islamic faction has only support of 10 or 20% of the population. But everybody agrees Bangladesh is actually split down the middle. And that's why I've said the faction which has been marginalized, or attempts which have been made to marginalize the Islamic faction, they have burst out into the open. The student protest is how it started. But I think it's now clear to me that Islamists also infiltrated the student protests later, and therefore the movement has actually mutated into something bigger.
But that's always the case. That's always the case. Once it spirals out.
That is always the case.
Always spirals out of hand. Then it obviously mutates into something that probably the civilized world may have a quarrel or a bone to pick with, so to say. But let me ask you one question, which is in everyone's mind, and you have a massive wealth of experience as a diplomat, and that's why this question I put to you. And the question is, what next for Sheikh Hasina? What I have been thinking? What I have been thinking all along is that it's not going to be easy for India to be continuously hosting her, and certainly it's not an easy choice to dump her. So this choice in itself is also a very delicate and tricky choice for the dispensation in this country.
Yes, two or three things, if I may. First, I've said India has done the right thing by offering her a place. You call it refuge, call it a haven, whatever you like. I think we helped her out. I think we owe this much to her. She was our friend. Let's not forget that. That's point number one. Point number two, to answer your question, I think her son has given you the answer. I think he's somewhere in the West. He has made it very clear she does not want to return to Bangladesh and to politics. And given her age, I would say, I would stick my neck out and say that we have seen the end of Sheikh Hasina's era in Bangladesh. It's a shame it ended this way, but I think this is really the final point as far as she is concerned. Last point, I do agree with people who feel the long-term stay of Sheikh Hasina in India would pose diplomatic problems for India. My sense is she is acutely conscious of it, and therefore India, I believe, behind the scenes must be in talks with friendly countries. And when I say friendly countries, UK now seems to be ruled out because UK has said that it would be difficult for them to offer her asylum. But therefore, we must be talking to countries. A couple of countries come to mind. UAE is one such country. Saudi Arabia is another country. There could be other small European countries which could host her. But that, I think, will take a bit of time, which is why I think her son has said for the time being, she will stay in India. I put it to you and your viewers that owe Sheikh Hasina this much. We owe her. She has been in power for 15 years. She has helped take the relationship to the next level. India, I think, should not be churlish, and India cannot be seen as a country not standing by its friends in the neighborhood. So I think we have done the right thing, but I agree with you, sooner or later, we will have to find a solution to her permanent stay.
Well, yes, I don't think anybody would have a quarrel with that argument of yours, Dr. Mohan Kumar. And on that note, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, thank you very much for coming and joining us on NDTV. And thank you very much for frankly sharing your opinions. Many in your
thank you very much.
Many in your ilk are not that frank.
Thank you very much. If you allow me, if you allow me just 1 minute maybe of concluding remarks.
Kindly go ahead. Kindly go ahead.
I would merely say that India should wait and watch, not do anything in a hurry. We should not be averse to contacting any group in Bangladesh, including the caretaker government, the other political parties, the civil society, because India and Bangladesh go back. Yes, Sheikh Hasina was our friend, but that should not preclude India from contacting any party in Bangladesh and playing a wait and watch diplomatic game. Thank you.
And yes, that's what the real sense of the term diplomacy would also mean, that you do not preclude or exclude any group from your consideration. And as I said, thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, Ambassador Kumar, for joining us. As I was saying, that many in your ilk are not that frank and forthright. Thank you for sharing your views with NDTV and very important views on a subject that is bothering a large section of polity and people on both sides of the border at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.